There is a flower beautiful enough for a wedding bouquet that is illegal to own in the state of Florida. A lavender bloom with a single yellow blotch, floating on still water like something painted. And yet, across 3 continents, this same plant is cleaning poisoned rivers, feeding livestock, and being turned into cooking fuel for villages that have no other source. In the United States, you can be fined. It doubles its own mass in as little as 2 weeks. It pulls heavy metals and toxic waste out of contaminated water. Researchers have studied it for medicine, for biofuel, for fertilizer. So why would a flower this useful be outlawed in multiple American states? That question becomes very important in about 3 minutes. But first, let me show you exactly what this flower is, where it came from, and what the science actually says. The flower is called the water hyacinth. Its scientific name is Eichhornia crassipes, and once you see it, you understand why people brought it across oceans on purpose. The bloom rises on a single spike above the water, 8 to 15 flowers clustered together, each one lavender blue with a bright yellow blotch at its heart. From a distance, a raft of them looks like a field of orchids floating on glass. It came from the warm rivers of tropical Brazil, deep in the Amazon basin. There, it was simply part of the landscape, held in check by the insects and conditions that had evolved alongside it for thousands of years. But the water hyacinth was built to travel. Each leaf sits on a spongy, inflated stalk filled with air, a natural life jacket that lets the entire plant drift freely across open water. Beneath the surface, dark feathery roots hang down like a curtain, filtering everything that passes through them. That combination of beauty and buoyancy carried it everywhere. By the 1880s, it had reached the United States. Today, it has naturalized in more than 50 countries, across Africa, Asia, Australia, Central America, and the southern United States. A South American native, now a permanent resident of nearly every warm waterway on the planet. And almost nowhere is it used the way it could be. Stand on the edge of a lake in rural Bangladesh or Vietnam in the early morning, and you will see people wading into the waste, pulling armfuls of this floating green from the water. To them, it is not a menace. It is a free resource that grows back faster than they can harvest it. The young leaves, the tender stems, and even the bulbous flotation pods at the base are boiled or fried and eaten. In parts of Southeast Asia, it has been a quiet part of the rural diet for generations. What people do not eat, the animals do. Across Africa and Asia, water hyacinth is cut and fed to pigs, cattle, and ducks as cheap, abundant fodder. The fibrous dried stalks are woven into baskets, rope, paper, and even furniture sold in markets. Whole village economies have been built on a plant that costs nothing to grow, and it does more than feed and furnish. Stuffed into composting pits and biogas digesters, it breaks down into fertilizer and cooking gas. Now compare that to here. In the United States, this same plant is contraband. Foragers note that in many states, transporting it can get you arrested, even if your only plan is to take some home and eat it. A free resource on one side of the world, a federal offense on the other. But the real surprise is not what it feeds, it is what it cleans. Here is what happens when you actually look at the research. A review published through the National Institutes of Health in the National Library of Medicine's PubMed Central database catalogs what this so-called weed is capable of. And the list is almost hard to believe. Start with the water itself. Water hyacinth is one of the most effective natural filters on Earth. Those dark, feathery roots pull heavy metals, nitrogen, phosphorus, and dissolved toxins straight out of contaminated water. Engineers have used it to treat sewage lagoons and industrial wastewater, letting the plant do the work that expensive chemical systems are built to do. Read that again, slowly. A flower that cleans poisoned water for free. Then there is energy. The same research documents water hyacinth being harvested and fed into digesters to produce biogas and biofuel, turning a floating nuisance into a source of cooking fuel and power. What's left over doesn't go to waste. The dried biomass becomes compost and fertilizer, feeding crops in the same soil the plant was pulled from. Researchers have even reported medicinal compounds within its tissues, studied for their potential. Water purifier, fuel source, fertilizer, livestock feed, medicine, all from a single plant that asks for nothing but sunlight and standing water. So here is the question that should be bothering you by now. Why is a plant that cleans our water illegal to own? Now here is where the story becomes something different entirely. The state of Florida did not just discourage this plant, it outlawed it. And it did so a very long time ago. Florida first prohibited the release of water hyacinth back in 1899, more than a century before most Americans had ever heard the word invasive. Today, the law goes much further. The transportation, importation, collection, possession, cultivation, or sale of water hyacinth is illegal in Florida. It sits on the state's official noxious weed list at the genus level, which means the restriction sweeps up the entire family, not just one species. To handle it legally, you need a special permit from the state. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is direct about it. Their official guidance states that, because of its aggressive growth rate, water hyacinth is illegal to possess in Florida without a special permit. Let that land. A plant that strips poison out of water. A plant that feeds livestock and powers homes across the developing world. A plant being studied at the level of the National Institutes of Health. That plant is illegal to possess in the state of Florida and restricted across much of the American South. The ecological concern behind that law is real. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But here is the part the government literature does not explain. Water hyacinth was not always the enemy. It was an invitation. The plant did not sneak into the United States. It was carried in, deliberately, prized for exactly the beauty you just saw. The most repeated account ties its American debut to the world's Cotton Centennial Exposition in New Orleans in 1884, where the lavender blooms were handed out to delighted visitors who carried them home to their own ponds and gardens. People wanted it. They planted it on purpose in the warm, still waters of the South where it thrives. And then it did what it does. It escaped into the bayous, the rivers, and the lakes. By the early 1960s, water hyacinth covered more than 120,000 acres of Florida's public lakes and navigable rivers. It clogged waterways so completely that, decades earlier, Congress had already ordered the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to fight it with purpose-built boats. The damage is genuine. Those dense floating mats block sunlight, kill the native plants beneath them, strangle oxygen out of the water, and create perfect stagnant pools for mosquitoes to breed. In an open American waterway, this plant is a real problem. I am not suggesting a conspiracy. I am simply pointing to a fact pattern. A plant was invited in for its beauty, became one of the most useful organisms on the planet, and was then written out of the conversation entirely. Now let me show you the number that changes everything about this conversation. Water hyacinth can double its entire population in as little as 2 weeks. Not its height, not a single stem. The whole colony doubled in 14 days. That is not a typo. Botanists place its growth rate among the highest of any known plant on Earth. It does this by sending out short horizontal runner stems that sprout new, fully formed plants the experts actually call daughter plants. 1 becomes 2. 2 become 4. A single rosette can grow to stand 1.5 meters above the surface of the water, given the nutrients it craves. Read that again slowly. The fastest growth of almost anything alive, doubling itself before the end of the month. Now, here is the part that should stop you cold. That runaway growth is the exact reason it was banned. and it is also the exact reason it could feed the world. The same trait that chokes a Florida canal is the trait that makes it the planet's fastest source of free biomass. It is why a polluted lake can be cleaned in weeks. It is why a village can harvest fuel again and again and never run out. The menace and the miracle are not two different things. They are the same plant, growing at the same impossible speed. I'll write Section 7, the global moral picture, cleaning poisoned water and powering villages, erased from the Western imagination. Step back far enough, and a different picture comes into focus. Across the developing world, this banned flower is quietly being turned into a solution. In parts of Africa and Asia, communities haul it out of polluted lakes and rivers by the boatload, using the plant's own appetite to strip the water clean. The same roots that filter heavy metals in a laboratory are doing it for free in places that cannot afford anything else. What they pull out doesn't go to waste. It is packed into digesters and converted to biogas, giving families cooking fuel where there was none. It is dried and sold as handicraft, woven into bags and furniture that become real income. It is composted back into the soil as fertilizer. Researchers studying low-cost ways to treat industrial and sewage effluent keep arriving at the same plant again and again because almost nothing else cleans water this fast for this little. So consider the contradiction. The world's poorest people are using a free, self-replicating plant to solve water, fuel, and income problems all at once. And the average American knows it only as something that will get you fined. The ecological danger in an open United States waterway is genuine. That part is true, but there is a difference between a danger and a thing that must be erased. I'll write Section 8, the responsible resolution, legal caveat, and philosophical close. This is the final block. Now, I want to be precise about something before we go any further. The legal situation with water hyacinth in the United States is real, and it is serious. In Florida, possession, transport, cultivation, and sale are all illegal without a permit. Several other states across the South and beyond restrict it as well. If you live in any of them, check your specific state and county regulations before you so much as bring this plant onto your property. The penalties are not theoretical. The ecological concern is equally real. In an open pond, lake, river, or canal, this plant does genuine, documented harm. It should never be released into a natural waterway. Not once, not ever. What differs from place to place is the narrow question of a fully contained, ornamental water garden or aquarium, sealed off and far from any natural water where it is legally permitted. That is the only context anyone should even consider, and only where the law allows it. Here is the final thought. The world is not short of plants that could clean our water, feed our animals, and fuel our homes. What we are short of is the willingness to look carefully at what was already floating there before someone decided it was only a problem. If this video opened a door you did not know existed, like it, and tell me in the comments which plant I should go this deep on next. Subscribe so you do not miss it. There are more of these stories out there. Most of them are growing somewhere right now, quietly, unnoticed.